have this, which I wanted to watch, and this might be the last one for today. This just came out yesterday. It's by, one of my favorite history channel, Epic History. And this is the American Revolution Part 1, The Road to Rebellion. I think we've watched some videos about the American Revolution before, but, I do have a big bias toward this channel. Their Napoleonic video is, basically the best series on YouTube, maybe. So I figured I'd watch their version of it. And I think I saw that they're also doing like a series about China, like early China or something. I don't know when they'll post that series, but I look forward to it. Yeah, so I figured we'll check this out. So the American Revolution Part 1, The Road to Rebellion, 1763, 1773. Let's learn about it.
1763. The 7 Years' War, a global conflict fought by European powers,
I don't know that
is
one
at
much.
an end.
I need to learn about that too.
And the British Empire has emerged victorious. Dominating its French and Spanish rivals, it claims new territory in India, the West Indies, and above all, North America. France must accept the loss of nearly all its colonies. 3 million square miles of land, comparable in size to all Europe.
Impossible to hold, I guess.
The British now rule an empire on which the sun never sets.
That's crazy. Okay, that's a crazy way to put it, but I guess, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But in victory, the seeds of future conflict are sown.
As
The
always,
enormous cost of the war has ballooned Britain's national debt. Interest payments alone consume more than half its annual spending.
that's crazy. We just watched the video about the War of the Roses, which was what, 400 years before? And like they were talking about like the debt was like 50k, 100k. So yeah, that's a big difference. That's a big difference.
And the vast new territories in America will need defending from bitter imperial rivals who look for any chance to reverse Britain's gains. Native American tribes also pose a threat.
I do remember the two great videos from Epic History about the Native American tribe like fighting back. It was really good. I like those two.
Especially those that are former allies of the French. In 1763, Chief Pontiac of the Odawa leads a revolt against the British. There is bloodshed along the frontier as every British fort west of the Appalachians comes under attack.
Alright, so.
But the greatest challenge will come not from external enemies, but from the very colonies Britain seeks to protect.
It's always from the inside. The American Revolution Part 1. What then is the American, this new man? He is an American who, leaving behind him all his ancient prejudices and manner, receives new one from the new mode of life he has embraced. Hector St. John de Crèvecoeur. Wait, that's actually French. Hector St. John de Crèvecoeur, which means like, I mean, it's a weird word, but it sounds like a dying art, basically. Letters from an American farmer. Okay. Okay.
157 years have passed since the first British colony was founded in North America.
Jamestown.
Now, there are 26 British colonies in North America and the West Indies. 13 of these lie along America's eastern seaboard, where after years of prosperity and immigration, the population has passed 2 million.
Okay.
Arguably, there is more that divides these 13 colonies than unites them. Each has its own distinct character, history, and form of government.
South, Middle, New England.
Several were founded by those seeking religious freedom in the New World. The Puritans.
Religious foundation of the 13 colonies: New Hampshire, Separatist; Massachusetts, Puritan; Rhode Island, Separatist Baptist; Connecticut, Congregationalist; New York, Dutch Reformed. Okay. New Jersey, mixed. Pennsylvania, Quaker. What is a Quaker? Delaware, Lutheran. Maryland, Roman Catholic. Virginia, Church of England. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Yeah, I guess that's very distinctly different. Even though I don't know some of those, like Quaker, Lutheran, all that. But
who settled Massachusetts, the Catholics of Maryland, and Quakers of Pennsylvania.
What's a Quaker?
Each colony has its share of rugged pioneers and economic opportunists, enticed by promises of plentiful land. But there are also many who arrive destitute, desperate, or against their will. Slavery is legal in all 13 colonies.
Damn.
In the north, enslaved Africans are a small minority, about 5% of the population. But in the south, the economy is dominated by slave plantations that grow rice, tobacco, and indigo.
Yeah.
In Virginia, African slaves make up around 40% of the population. In South Carolina, 60%.
Slavery in the 13 colonies. Colony, free, slave. 180,000, 75,000. But then in comparison, like some of the other, like it's very little in comparison. Like, I wonder it's because like some of the other places were more progressive, or what was it? Like in New Hampshire, they only have like 600 slaves. And then if you look at, for example, like Massachusetts, they have like 230,000 free. Pennsylvania as well. Yeah. I guess it's probably like different way to look at it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Early settlers had been overwhelmingly from England. But in recent decades, the picture has begun to change, with more immigrants from Ireland, Scotland, and Germany. All have helped to shape a new American culture, which makes a sharp impression on visitors. It is less
The one in the middle looks like Clint Eastwood a little bit, no?
deferential, more enterprising, increasingly self-confident. Old ties with the motherland are not what they used to be.
It makes sense so far,
For
right?
most of their history, the relationship between the British government and its American colonies has been one of salutary neglect. The colonies had been largely left to manage their own affairs, while Britain focused on more lucrative possessions in the West Indies and India. But this is about to change.
The teasing, right?
Britain faces an extraordinary debt crisis, and many expect the colonies to help meet the cost of their own defense. It seems a reasonable expectation. The average American's tax burden is a fraction of that paid by the average Briton.
Why the debt, by the way? Like, they have such a crazy empire and colonies making so much money for everybody all over the place. So why do they have such a crazy debt?
By one calculation, a Briton pays 26 shillings a year in tax. A New Englander, 1 shilling.
Yeah.
But it is the manner in which the British government goes about raising taxes that will put it and the colonies on a collision course.
Not the tea, not the tea. If America looks to Great Britain for protection, she must enable us to protect her. If she expects our fleet, she must assist our revenue. Edmund Burke, Member of Parliament. February 1765.
British Prime Minister George Grenville is determined to fix the country's spiralling debt crisis. He believes new colonial taxes must be part of the solution. In 1764, he proposes 2 new revenue-raising measures. A Sugar Act, which actually lowers the tax on foreign sugar and molasses, but only as part of a determined effort to ensure more effective collection. And a Stamp Act, which will...
Okay, give me a quick second. I just noticed I'm becoming orange. Too much sun. should be better. I guess for once, like, it's only 8:30 a.m., but the sun is crazy today.
Will tax all commercial and legal documents, from newspapers and playing cards to attorneys' licenses and land grants. These relatively minor taxes are not expected to cause much fuss. Englishmen have been paying them for 70 years.
Yeah, but it's not the same. And again, I guess it shows right away that they're like very out of touch. Like, they think that the way they think in main England will be the same all the way on the other side of the world, right? I mean, especially because, like, you know, the Americas, the colonies, place like that. I mean, you know, it's new colonies. They're trying to build a new like country and everything. So, you know, they need a lot of money to make that work out, right?
But to the surprise of the British government, the reaction in the colonies is uproar. The Stamp Act particularly hits merchants, lawyers and business owners, the most articulate and influential members of colonial society.
Yeah.
They condemn the measures in newspapers and a flood of pamphlets.
Still too much sun, give me a sec. Alright, I can't do better than that.
This tax will deprive us of all our invaluable rights and privileges. It will drain us suddenly of our cash, occasion an entire stagnation of trade, discourage every kind of industry, and involve us in the most abject slavery.
Aren't you also doing
Opposition
slavery?
focuses less on the financial burden than on the principle of consent. Americans protest.
Oh. Read a book about the early settlers. We are founded on capitalism, early investor farmer on land, shares, and of course votes on how the enterprise work, evolving our belief on representation.
That they have no representation in the British Parliament and can accept no taxation without representation.
That makes sense.
It is their rights as British subjects, they point out, rights protected by the British Constitution, that are being trampled on. Prime Minister George Grenville argues the American colonies have virtual representation in Parliament.
Okay.
That is, their interests are represented in a general way by all British MPs.
But that's obviously bullshit, I mean. Like, come on.
After all, even most Britons don't have the right to vote in a general election. Grenville's argument does not win many backers, even in Parliament itself, where electoral reform is a fierce battleground.
There is an idea, in some, that the colonies are virtually represented in the House. I would fain know by whom an American is represented here. Is he represented by any knight of the Shire in any county in this kingdom?
The Shire?
Or will you tell him that he is represented by any representative of a borough? A borough which perhaps its own representatives never saw. This is what is called the rotten part of the Constitution. It cannot continue a century.
The Speaker is Pitt the Elder, a renowned former Prime Minister, who adds,
William Pitt.
That this kingdom has no right to lay a tax upon the colonies.
What greater glory can New England see than stamp men hanging from a tree, inscribed on an effigy of Andrew Oliver, the tax collector? Wow.
Throughout 1765, colonial assemblies meet to protest against the new acts. In the Virginia House of Burgesses, Patrick Henry emerges as one of the most radical leaders of colonial resistance. He proposes a series of resolutions, which are adopted by the House.
Resolved, that the first adventurers and settlers of His Majesty's colony and Dominion of Virginia brought with them all the liberties, privileges, and immunities that have at any time been held, enjoyed, and possessed by the people of Great Britain.
Okay.
Resolved, that the taxation of the people by themselves or by persons chosen by themselves to represent them, is the only security against a burdensome taxation.
I mean, seems simple enough, yeah, like, if you want to tax, they need to agree and be part of the debate about it. That just makes a lot more sense. I don't know. Makes sense to me.
But there are bitter divisions within the Virginia Assembly. Some members believe Patrick Henry goes too far.
Okay.
Loyalty to Britain and the British Crown is deep-rooted. Conservative members succeed in removing his most radical resolution, that only Virginia's assembly has the authority to raise taxes in the colony. Among the regular observers at these debates, a brilliant 22-year-old law clerk named Thomas Jefferson.
I've heard the name.
The divisions in Virginia are mirrored across the colonies as debate grows more heated and protests turn violent. Tax collectors are beaten up by mobs, driven out of town, or forced to resign. Tax documents are destroyed.
I feel bad.
Effigies of royal governors are burned or hanged from liberty trees. Meanwhile, delegates from 9 of the 13 colonies meet in New York, where they draft a petition to the British King, George III, and Parliament. While assuring Crown and Parliament of their
Does the King have any power at this point? Or is the Parliament and government the real power at this point?
unwavering loyalty, the delegates declare that it is their right as Englishmen to have no taxes imposed upon them without their consent.
Yeah.
Colonial merchants begin to organize a boycott of British goods. The uproar, the possible damage to trade, plus the fact that taxes are clearly unenforceable,
I mean, yeah.
finally forces the British government to back down.
Phew. And everything was fine after that.
The following year, 1766, the Sugar Act and Stamp Act are scrapped by a new British Prime Minister, Lord Rockingham.
Cool name.
The colonies have won a major victory. But the British Parliament does not back down over its right to raise taxes in America.
Yeah.
The same day it repeals the taxes, it declares,
Parliament assembled had, hath, and of right ought to have full power and authority to make laws and statutes of sufficient force and validity to bind the colonies and people of America, in all cases whatsoever.
Wait, say that again.
Of America.
Parliament assembled. Damn, just the old way it's worded is breaking my brain.
In all cases whatsoever.
the words seem calculated to outrage America's colonial assemblies and convince many that though this storm has passed, another will surely follow.
Yeah. That makes sense. Suppose a military force is sent into America. They will not find a rebellion. They may indeed make one. Benjamin Franklin to Parliament, 13th of February, 1766.
1767.
That's a good point,
One year
yeah.
on, Parliament passes a new series of measures to raise revenue from the colonies and demonstrate its authority over them. They are named
Respect
after the
maritime
Chancellor
attack.
of the Exchequer, the Townshend Acts. In the 13 colonies, they are met with howls of protest. Royal administrators are chased out of towns. Some tax officials are tarred and feathered, a brutal punishment where the victim is paraded through the streets covered in scalding tar.
Ah, that's fucked up.
A new term emerges for these rabble-rousers: patriots.
Okay.
Colonists who seek to avoid confrontation with Parliament become known as
I like the movie.
loyalists.
Even though I know it's not I believe it's not very historically accurate. I like The Patriot. I really enjoyed watching it when I was young. We had the DVD of it. I watched it like quite a few times, maybe like 10 times.
Many communities and even families will soon be divided between these two camps. Though for now, most are somewhere in the middle. Among the Patriots in New England are a group calling themselves the Sons of Liberty.
Cool name.
Led by Samuel Adams, they include merchant and smuggler John Hancock, physician Joseph Warren, and silversmith Paul Revere.
Okay.
The crisis comes to a head in Massachusetts. Boston has been a hotbed of Patriot activity since the Stamp Act.
That's why it is, right? The
tension
Boston
rises when British soldiers are quartered here in 1768. On the 5th of March, 1770, an altercation between soldiers and locals turns into a tense standoff.
And once again, the art is so good in his videos.
Taunted by an angry crowd, hundreds strong, pelted with snowballs and rocks, the small British detachment loses its nerve and opens fire.
Yeah, bye.
5 local men are killed. The Boston Massacre, as it becomes known, is powerful propaganda for the Patriot cause. The news carried in pamphlets and prints, the most famous created by Paul Revere. Blood has been spilled. Emotions are running high.
Let the 5th of March never be forgot,
writes Bostonian Samuel Savage in his diary.
Whoa. Your name is Samuel Savage. Holy shit. Damn, that's pretty cool.
Many anticipate a downward spiral into violence and disorder.
It was bound to happen, I guess. The inhabitants are greatly enraged, and not without reason. Diary of John Rowe, Boston merchant. Okay.
Despite the bloodshed in Boston, there are many on both sides who seek to de-escalate the crisis between British, Loyalists and Patriots.
Yeah.
The British governor of Massachusetts, Thomas Hutchinson, withdraws the troops from Boston and has those involved in the shooting put on trial. They are acquitted of murder thanks to the efforts of their skilled lawyer, a noted patriot, John Adams.
That's not gonna make people happy.
In Britain, there is a new Prime Minister, Lord North, a close friend of the King and staunch advocate of parliamentary authority. He will serve in the role for the next 12 years.
12 years, huh?
The economic damage of colonial boycotts persuades him to repeal Townshend's new taxes.
Oh,
all but
here
one.
we go.
On
I was wondering if I was confused because the tea stuff wasn't coming.
tea.
Here we go.
Relative calm returns to the colonies. The boycott is lifted. A second crisis has been weathered.
Oof. And everything was good after that, I'm sure.
But in New England, hostility towards the British government lingers. Here, local merchants rely on ships and trade, and have long resented British imperial rules, which restrict their commerce with other nations.
Yeah.
Many patriots, like John Hancock, make extra money by smuggling goods into the colonies, bypassing British import duties. British efforts to clamp down on smuggling do not make them any more popular. Royal Navy warships are used to inspect and seize vessels belonging to prominent local figures, like John Hancock. To the outrage of New England merchants, the British also begin trying suspected smugglers in special Vice Admiralty courts. rather than the more sympathetic local courts. In 1772, the Sons of Liberty hit back, boarding the Royal Navy schooner HMS Gaspé and setting it ablaze.
That's a big act.
Meanwhile, in Britain, the Empire's largest corporation is on the verge of bankruptcy. The East India Company has a monopoly on British trade with India, China, and the East Indies. But a credit crisis now threatens its survival.
Oof.
In 1773, to help keep the company afloat, Parliament grants it the right to sell tea directly to the American colonies.
Okay.
The company also receives tariff exemptions that will make its tea cheaper than that of the local smugglers. But a small tax of 3 pence per pound of tea remains in place. The new Tea Act thus threatens the profits of local smugglers and provokes patriots on the principle of taxation without
They
representation.
did it again. Oops, I did it again.
As 7 company ships cross the Atlantic, packed with 250 tons of tea, the Sons of Liberty and others pressure tea dealers to reject the shipments. When one ship arrives in Philadelphia, thousands of locals threaten anyone who helps to unload its cargo.
This tea filled with poverty, oppression, slavery, and every other hated disease.
Most of the ships are forced to turn.
But at the same time, for like the regular people, they've just been kind of brainwashed because the tea would be cheaper. Like, this would be fine for the regular people for the most part. It's just that the smugglers, the merchants, and the more, you know, rich people just like, you know, kind of convinced the regular that, you know, you need to fight for this. When in the end, you know, if we're just talking about tea, like the regular people would benefit from this as the tea is cheaper, no?
And back. In Boston, however, Governor Thomas Hutchinson has had enough of boycotts. He ensures that 3 company ships enter the harbor. On a December evening in 1773, members of the Sons of Liberty board the ships, disguised as Native Americans.
Okay.
They've chosen these costumes as a symbol of their new American identity.
So it's not just to put the blame on someone else?
They break open 340 chests of tea and dump the contents into the harbor.
Okay, at that point, steal the tea. I guess you can just drink the tea in the harbor, yeah? I'm sure it's very delicious.
92,000 pounds of tea in all, with a value today of nearly $2 million. Patriots celebrate.
I am sure there's some shop that just filled some fucking barrels of that, of the harbor tea, and serve that to people. I believe it. I believe it.
The Boston Tea Party as a bold act of defiance. And it is just the most famous of several such acts in numerous ports and towns.
Oh, so there's more than one, okay. Charlestown, Greenwich, New York, and Philadelphia Tea Party. Okay. Yeah, I knew about this event, but I guess I'm learning a lot more about it. Also, I guess I always thought tea was the biggest problem, but no, that was just like the culmination of like other things that have been taxed.
According to Patriot lawyer John Adams,
this is the most magnificent movement of all. There is a dignity, a majesty, a sublimity in this last effort of the Patriots that I greatly admire. The people should never rise without doing something to be remembered, something notable and striking.
Yeah.
the reaction in London is rather different.
Well, yeah.
The British government sees
They're very serious about their tea, I mean. disrespect the tea, you disrespect England. It is what it is.
He's only lawlessness, mob rule, and an outrageous attack on private property. Enough is enough. If the government does not act firmly now, its authority in North America will lie in tatters. The time for restraint is over. The gloves are coming off.
Oh boy.
Today, there are probably more original, high-quality history documentaries being made than at any time in history.
Sure.
Yet at the same time, it's getting harder and harder to find the good ones amidst the flood of derivative videos,
True.
misleading titles, and the worst of AI-generated content. So instead of losing precious time trawling the internet, many of our viewers are turning to another option,
Nebula.
the prestige streaming
It's I'll pause here, yeah. Good ad. Nebula seems cool. I mean, maybe one day I'll get that service. At the same time, you know, I'm definitely one of those people that do actually enjoy trying to find the good channels on YouTube. But Nebula is always seems like a pretty good sponsor. Okay, so yeah, that was part one. I think again, we had seen some other video about the American Revolution, and some of what was in this video was covered, but I still feel like I learned a lot more than I had remembered or that I knew. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Obviously, I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. I don't know how many videos they're gonna make about the revolution. I kind of hope that they keep going for both like the political side of things and maybe the battles too. Obviously, again, you know, I do have a big bias toward this channel. Epic History is just peak. So yeah, hopefully they'll do more. All I can say. Very interesting. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Very interesting. Great video. Obviously, you know, I kind of hope that they do this series kind of like the Napoleon series, where they've gone so in depth, you know. Like, so I hope, yeah, they do like every battle and everything that happens to have like a complete awesome in-depth documentary of it. I would love that.